From the BCLC Added Value in Emerging Markets Conference, we are very fortunate to have Michael Jacobson from Intel. Michael, welcome.
It's good to see you.
All right, so Corporate Responsibility Officer, that's a big responsibility. What do you do?
Well, my job is to work across Intel to ensure something really very simple, that we are good and that we do good. And we look at that in a broad spectrum. It's not just about philanthropy, it's about corporate governance, it's about sustainability, supply chain. So I lead a team that tries to, influence the way that Intel operates to secure that very simple thing, that we are good and that we do good.
Every industry has its own special challenges in this very field. What do you think would be the special challenges that you may have in the software business?
Well, and again, software is part of what we do. But
oh, there's more?
Well, we do create these things called microprocessors.
Oh, those things.
Those things. But we do, our software business is growing actually dramatically. I think what there is there's a unique opportunity. You look at the skill set that we have because of what we do as a corporation, and how do you take that skill set and that capability and reach out and do good through that. So I think, I look at it as really an opportunity. The kind of work that we do really does allow us to have pretty significant social impact.
Really?
And hopefully social impact for the good.
Is this in, I'm not sure how to ask this, but I'll just ask it the best way I possibly can. Is this ingrained in the company, or is it something that is being driven from the outside?
No, you're asking a great question, and I talk about this a lot when it comes to corporate social responsibility. It's ingrained in the company. It really goes back to Gordon Moore and Bob Noyce and Andy Grove, the founders of our company, and this foundation they put in place around operating ethically, having values that appreciated our work in the external community, and ethical performance, integrity. All of those things really started at the beginning of the company. And those values really set the platform for everything else we do. Right? If you're not ethical, if you don't have integrity, if you don't care about the people around you, that's not a good place to start from a corporate social responsibility standpoint.
We've been talking with a lot of people over the past several days, and the one thing that comes from anything tied to tech is that the younger people in the industry have said that we want to do something more than just make money. We want to make an impact. Is that true of Intel as well?
No, very much so. And we have some great programs with our employees, so we can tap into our employees to make a difference around the world. So an example of that would be wherever our employees volunteer, we'll match that volunteer time with a cash contribution. Yeah. So that's nice, right?
Yeah, that's
good.
Great.
Now, we also are looking at, okay, but how do we drive skills-based volunteering? So they take what they're good at and they help the nonprofit community get better in their efficiencies in management. And one of the things we do now is, instead of just having that money follow after they volunteer, we have our employees come to us and submit a plan that would have seed funding. So we're going to volunteer this many hours, so give us the money up front so we can take that money and embed it into the project we're doing. We do something called Sustainability in Action grants. Our employees submit ideas on how we can make a difference in the environment. And you get cool projects like a lawyer sitting in Arizona came up with an idea, working with Arizona State University, that we could grow algae by using our emissions and then turn that algae into a biofuel.
Oh, fantastic.
So he submitted that as a proposal, and then we fund it, and we're in a pilot process right now to see if that's something that we could actually build onto. So I think our employees definitely care, and we engage. We have sustainability and action networks across the company.
What does sustainability mean? There's lots of people use that word. What does it mean to you?
It's a great question. And in this context, I was talking about environmental sustainability. Sustainability by itself is much broader than that. It includes really looking at what's going to help a company be sustainable long term. And environment is part of that. Governance and ethics is part of that. The way you design your products is part of that. But I know one of the things we get into in the CSR space is we use a lot of terms. and sometimes the terms confuse. That's just a challenge we deal with. So you're right, there's a lot of different definitions for sustainability.
One thing that a lot of people have talked about is the sustainability has moved into sustainability from an economic standpoint, particularly with regard to jobs. How many countries does Intel work in?
Well, it depends on what so Intel sells in many companies. We have corporate affairs or public affairs programs in over 55 countries. We have about 190 employees that work in corporate affairs and deliver strategic philanthropic programs across the world.
Oh, so basically, I should have said, is there any country that you don't work in?
Well, the example, Intel likes to think big, so it was a little over 10 years ago where we said we wanted to train 10 million teachers around the world how to use technology to enhance the educational experience. Not how to use Word or PowerPoint, but how do you use the technology to improve the educational experience. We said we'd train 10 million teachers around the world, and we just achieved that goal about 3 weeks ago.
10 million teachers?
10 million teachers.
Wow. Well, that's a great segue then into some of the focal points of Intel, and particularly around the world, education is one of your focal points. I think training 10 million teachers is a really great start.
Yeah, it is a great start. Education drives innovation. Innovation drives economic growth. So from an Intel standpoint, we've been committed to education. It makes sense to us as a corporation. Right? Education is very important to us. Having a skilled labor force is very important to us. But it really is this notion of the power of innovation. And if we invest in education, we're investing in that power of innovation. And if you do that in the right way, you can have tremendous social impact around the world.
What are some of the things that you're doing around the world in education besides training 10 million teachers?
Well, in the conference today, we're talking a lot about shared value, and again, that's one of these things that has many definitions. But one of the things that we can do is take our folks who work in our public affairs operation or corporate affairs operation, our sales and marketing, our product design, bring them together and say, how can we make a difference in education? So, an example: we've worked in countries where we provide the Intel Learning Series, which includes a low-cost, rugged technology that works really well in emerging economies, the Classmate PC. It includes teacher training. It includes software. And not only can we work to drive that to scale. One of the things we did in Portugal is we actually brought in then a company to manufacture that Classmate PC in Portugal. So we're creating those jobs as well. So impacting education, driving innovation, and creating jobs.
Is the difficult economy around the world impacting what Intel does in terms of its education outreach?
No. No. So one of the things we do, we spend, my team spends a lot of time talking about the value that's created through corporate responsibility. And it's really, really important for people who work in my field to spend time internal to their company, sharing with them the value that's generated by being engaged externally. If the company sees the value in it and places value in it, then whether times are good or times are bad, they're going to continue to invest. Now, the reality is Intel's business is doing really well. And part of the reason we're doing really well is because the emerging economies are growing. It's not necessarily the mature markets, it's the emerging economies that are driving our business.
Well, one of the other things that you do a lot of work with is with NGOs themselves. Not necessarily tied to education, but just helping the NGOs become more efficient. Is that right?
Absolutely.
How do you do that?
Well, it's a good question. Let me just give you an example. So, we were approached by Catholic Relief Services and NetHope. NetHope is a consortium of technology folks that work in the NGO community, and they approached us with the problem around the cassava plant, which is a food staple in the Great Lakes region of Africa. And there was disease that was impacting the cassava plant. So they sat down with us, and it really wasn't about philanthropy. It was, how do you use your technology? How can we come up with a computer that serves and software that serves our needs, so that we can educate our field workers and we can eradicate this disease? So it was a matter of Intel sitting down with the NGO and coming up with again, it's using this Classmate PC, which is a rugged laptop that works really well in those sort of conditions. And let's put together a software stack that allows them to share information, to learn, to act, to share. And it was a successful project. Once we developed that, through NetHope, we began looking at other NGOs that have field workers, and how could we use this same technology solution to process children faster through the Child Relief Fund. And so, you know, I think one of the keys is sitting down with NGOs and understanding what their challenges are, and how from our standpoint, technology can make a difference.
Right here at the Added Value and Emerging Markets Conference, the BCLC has announced 2 new tools that are available. One of them is the Business for Good map, and another one is the International Business Corps. Are tools like that from the BCLC likely to be helpful for you in your global outreach?
Well, let's talk with the map first. So the map is definitely helpful. One, it's time for business to stand up and say, you know, we do good things around the world, and make sure that that's recognized. And so the map actually shows the sort of scale that corporations in the U.S. are achieving through their programs around the world. So part of it's just telling the story. That's good. But the real benefit to it is then we can look around the world and see where people are engaging and what issue they may be engaging in, whether it's education, girls and women, environment. And it becomes a collaboration tool. The reality is, the way that you're going, there's no single company, and Intel can scale pretty big by itself. But if we're really wanting to respond to some of these global challenges, we got to do it in significant scale. The way you do work in scale is through collaboration and strategic alliances. So this is a tool that will help us do that.
Well, very good then. In the International Business Corps, basically, do you think that businesses will come together around that? Essentially, it's volunteerism, skills-based volunteerism around the world. I mean, Intel does that already.
Yeah, I think skills-based volunteering is really critical, and having extended service opportunities. So we have the Intel Education Service Corps, where we take people for a month and we put them in emerging economies and have them work on applying Intel technology to solve challenges.
Really?
So, but the more that an organization like BCLC can do to bring corporations together and to collaborate, the better off society will be. And so I'm really excited about that project, and we'll see how we tap into it.
The better off society will be. Okay. So there we are. We're going to look 10 years down the road now. Actually, we're going to go 10 years down the road and then look back. Is society better off because of some of the things Intel's done?
10 years down the road, definitely better off. By engaging in education, focusing on entrepreneurship that allows people to take that education and put it into a practice to create jobs and to drive economic growth. It's one of the things I get really excited about. Intel, through our programs, is making a difference, and will help places around the world drive innovation and drive economic growth. And through the process, we'll solve challenges. So that is definitely exciting. I have no doubt that we'll do it. But 10 years from now, what I will judge as success is not only do we have that kind of success, but it's recognized as it is today as a value generator for the corporation.
Excellent. Michael, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thanks, Dan.